On today's video, we'll tell you why apothecaries are ridiculously good for Black Templars.
Welcome to Implausible Nature, home to competitive Black Templars gameplay.
Alright, so on today's video, we are going to be talking elites. We have broken up our elite section, which is very full for Space Marines, into three different categories. We're going to do support characters, elite infantry, and dreadnoughts. And just remember that if you like what you see here or are interested in more competitive Black Templars content, please leave a like and make sure that you're subscribed. And today we're going to talk about support characters. So first up is the Apothecary, both the Primaris and the Firstborn version. This is a nearly an auto take in every list. These guys are so good. Their abilities are able to buff your toughest units and really make your units just that much more difficult to remove from the board. One of their abilities is an aura, that's the Narthecium, which gives a essentially what we call a 6+ feel no pain for anything within 3 inches. So this is really great because we can combo this, use an apothecary on one unit and divine protection on another, and sort of spread out that ability to multiple different units, which really helps with our hard-hitting melee units stay alive longer. Things like Terminators, Blade Guard, Vanguard Vets, that sort of thing. Since it is an aura, the Crusader Helm and the Voxa Spiritum, obviously that's Primaris only, but those two relics will increase that range from 3 inches to 6 inches, which is really great. That is definitely recommended because you want to have as big a bubble as possible so that if the apothecary lags behind a little bit, or maybe you can affect more than one unit to really take advantage of that. And then all apothecaries also have combat restoratives, which means that they can heal a model for up to D3 lost wounds per turn, which is useful, especially on higher wound models like Terminators and Bikers, things like that. And then, of course, they have access to the Strat Combat Revival, where you can resurrect a model essentially from a unit at full wounds. So if you're going to take an apothecary, which you probably should, you should also upgrade him to the Chief Apothecary. Taking the Warlord trait, Selfless Healer, is what is going to get you that combat revival stratagem for free, and the restore up to 3 lost wounds. And just being a Chief Apothecary gets him the ability to use his combat restoratives ability twice instead of once. So yeah, as far as Primaris or Firstborn, there is actually not much of a difference between these two guys. Primaris one has that Primaris keyword, so access to all of those strats. Can ride in a pulsar. He's got a couple of fancy pistols, an extra wound and attack. The Firstborn Apothecary has a chainsword, so a little bit better in melee, even though he's got one less attack, although he probably shouldn't be fighting too often. And he has the command squad special rule, so with a company veteran squad, he doesn't take up a force organization slot, which is nice. And he can ride in your Firstborn transports as well.
Yeah, this guy is definitely a great take all around in every list, as we mentioned in a previous video. Bringing models back to the table without additional cost in points to your list is really powerful, especially if you give that additional aura 3 inches with the Crusader Helm of the Vox Imperium, or maybe perhaps the Fervent Acclamation Litany. You're going to be putting yourself in a great situation, being able to weather a lot of first turn firepower, even second turn while you're advancing forward to get to the other side of the board. So this guy is going to be something that you might want to even take with the Firstborn. If you are taking company veterans, it is a no force on that, and just a way to get some additional elites into your list for very little points. 90 points base with Chief Apothecarian for Firstborn and 95 for the Primaris version. So very cost effective to ensure that you're going to be getting those wounds back. Next one on our list here, we have our company champion. So this is a Firstborn character who, like the others in our old command squad, can be a no force organization option if you take company veterans. He has a couple special rules that's applicable. He has a combat shield, which gives him 5+ invulnerable. He has honor or death, which extends his heroic intervention to 6 inches instead of 3 inches horizontally. He also has martial superiority, so at the start of the fight phase, if it's within the engagement range of any enemy character units, it can fight first this phase. So he by himself is always going to fight first, which is really kind of handy. So that's awesome. He is also armed with a power or mastercrafted power sword. So you're going to have those, the 1+ strength and the 2 damage, which is really kind of nice. And being a character, you can also, if you have the extra CP and the ability for the hero of the chapter, you can make him kind of a mini character killer, utilizing various different warlord traits, such as Champion of Humanity, which will give him the ability to add 1 to his attack's characteristic while he's in range of an enemy character. And then while he's making that melee attack against them, they add 1 to the attack roll and the wound roll. While you're doing that, you can also give him the Sword of Judgment to get that that damage 3 onto his power sword. So comboing his attacks, which he will have 5 attacks plus the strength 5, and then you're also going to get a +1 to hit and a +1 to wound.
He's a interesting character, sort of like an Emperor's Champion light. He's obviously not as killy as our Emperor's Champion, who is just absurd against characters. But this guy's also 30 points cheaper and is an elite's choice, who can potentially be a no force org choice, which is great. So it's not a bad take if you have extra points. I wouldn't necessarily try to build around him, but he's definitely not bad in any way. A solid fighty character that can do some damage for you. It should be noted that Black Templars cannot make him a chapter champion, so we're not able to do that. I think the reason for that is because we have the Emperor's Champion. So moving on, we are going to take a look at the Judiciar, and we reviewed this guy in our Indominus video a while back, and he is just as every bit as good as he was then. Since the Codex came out, he did lose just a little bit with his making the opponent strike last ability. It dropped from 6 inches to 3 inches. So he really has to be in the thick of things in order for that to work, but still a very, very good support character, especially if you are planning to run Blade Guard Veteran in an Impulsor combo. He still works really great with that. You just want to make sure that you get him as close as possible. And to be honest, this is a support character that you want to have in melee. He's very good in melee. All of his stats have not changed. He has his invulnerable save, which is only in melee. Melee is where he is going to be the safest.
Yeah, the Judiciar did lose a little bit of its oomph from the release of the Indominus, but he's still a good fighty character that you can get in there. He doesn't do a whole lot of buffing now with that 3 inches, but one thing to note with that is if you do make him a warlord, the hero of the chapter, you can give him the additional range on our heroic interventions and get into combat so you can use that Temper Mortis. He's definitely something, a character similar to our Emperor's Champion that can do a lot of work, and that's where he's best. Next one on our list here is going to be the Ancients. So I'm going to lump these together. We have the 3 different versions, just kind of like the Apothecaries. With that, we have the Blade Guard Ancient, the Company Ancient, and the Primaris Ancient. So between the Primaris Ancient and the Firstborn Company Ancient, you're not going to see a whole lot of difference on the model itself other than the additional attack on that. Their Astartes banner, essentially when a core unit within 6 inches dies on a 4+, they can attack again, either shooting their weapon full capacity or making 1 close combat attack. In addition, it adds 1 to the leadership characteristic of that unit. If you upgrade them, in the command phase, you can select a friendly core unit within 6 inches of that. And at the start of your next command phase, each time a model in the unit makes a melee attack, you add 1 to the hit roll. So this is going to be a chosen unit. It's going to be very similar to the Blade Guard unit, who automatically gives that to your Blade Guard within 6 inches. If you upgrade to that, you also have access to a very, very good warlord trait called Steadfast Example, which essentially gives all core units within the 6 inches of your warlord objective secured. So you're basically making whatever you would like that's core a troops unit, which is awesome. In addition, if it already has the objective secured ability, you count as having one additional model in that unit for determining the control of that objective in case your opponent also has objective secured. So that's a really big tactic. So you can load up, and a lot of our successful lists are loading up on elites with scare units advancing across the board with very few troops, minimal. You get a warlord trait, riots of war, and then you also have this steadfast example that will also give you objective secured, so you don't have to worry so much about those troop squads, and you can focus on having hard hitting, dangerous units that your opponent has to take off the board before they get those objectives. And I touched on the Blade Guard Ancient, as mentioned. He also does have the Astartes banner, but in addition, he also does have the Deeds of Heroism, which just add 1 to the hit rolls to all attacks by friendly Blade Guard. So it's very similar to the upgraded Chapter banner, as mentioned before, but it's applicable to all Blade Guard as well.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good analysis. The ancients are none of them are bad. It really just depends on how you plan to use them and what units you're going to run them with. So, you've got the ancient and Terminator armor. So if you want to deep strike a blob of Terminators in, you've got the Blade Guard, who if you're running multiple squads of Blade Guard units is a great take because he can buff them while also still buffing other units around him. The regular firstborn ancient can take a power weapon if you want him to, which is nice. He actually has quite a plethora of options to choose from. And then your Primaris ancient, he has a bolt rifle, so he would be good if you wanted to have more of a support for your troops. If you wanted to take advantage of that steadfast example warlord trait and essentially get double obsec on those troops, you could do that as well, which is nice. So that about wraps it up for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hit that like button and subscribe so you can get notified on all of our latest content. We have a Discord channel, so check that out. The link is in the description, and we'll see you next time.